And here's a look at the potatoes. And these are the radishes. As you can see, not all the radishes came out. And this is a leftover kale. Of course, those are the stinging nettles that are just growing like crazy. Now we're in the super slow-mo. Coming upon where I planted a bunch of carrots. And if you look really closely, and I think I do zoom in, this narration is after the fact. I'm doing this to show the garden because you see those little green things I'm kind of closing in on? Those are the carrots starting to break the soil. At least the ones that survived the snow and the last cold snap. Though I had this kind of hinged glass thing that covers the top of this. But the reason I'm doing this is because it's starting to rain right now. It's April 29th, 2021. And and I say they apostrophe RE, meaning NOAA weather forecasting. They're forecasting that we're going to get thunderstorms with up to 50 to 60 mile an hour winds sometime by tonight into tomorrow, and then tomorrow night it's going to dip down into the low 30s. So basically, I'm kind of screwed. Here's my kale. The one with the cut off big thick stem, that's a recovered one from last year. But you can see I left the other stem there, but nothing's happening with that. That's just dead wood, basically. But in the upper right hand corner is one that I planted from seed indoors in my house, my closet greenhouse. And the one on the left with a little bit of a yellow leaf on it, that's also a seedling I put in the other day. You could tell it fresher. Some nice composted soil there. Help that thing out. I mean, that should handle the cold. I'm not worried about that. And here, as you can see, in the lower left of this square gardening little plot, raised bed, that's sage that recovered from last year. I didn't plant any new sage. And on the right is cilantro, which I did plant this year, and that's coming up fine. It's actually rather crowded. And you can see parsley that survived over the winter as well. So this little square gardening, it's oddly shaped. Excuse me, sorry for that. I'm not editing these things out. I'm just doing this live, kind of like live narration. I'm closing in on the cilantro. I like making homemade salsa, and there's nothing like having fresh cilantro in your salsa. And that parsley's looking pretty darn nice too, isn't it? And the same with the sage. I dried out some sage from last year. It's good to burn to cleanse your aura. Coming up here ahead on the upper right is some thyme that seems to be caught in suspended animation. It's looked like that since the day I put it in, because I grew that originally indoors. And in this left kind of nothing space with this sickly looking plant, that was once a healthy basil that didn't take too well to the last time we had a frost, even though I covered it with like burlap and stuff. So I'll probably use that same space for basil. I'll just grow some new basil starts in the mini greenhouse that we'll see at the very end of this one. And of course, over here to the right is a giant bush of oregano. which just plopped up from last year's seeds. You know, it's self-seeded. And I was going to put something else in the rear section of that, but I doubt it. This basil will just get crazy out of control. And this year I'm going to try to use more basil in things. Parsley gets like that basil too. It just like grows like a bush. You know, if you really have to keep on top of it. Same with that stinging nettle. Now we're approaching the most important area and the area that I'm kind of fretting the most. There's a little bit of distortion on the left part of the screen. That apparently is my thumb because I'm using my smartphone camera here. Fortunately, it's not getting in the way of what I want to show you. In the very foreground are some bean plants. That's why I've got all these various metal contraptions so they could grow up on. But there you see my lettuce. And there's various different lettuce plants mixed in together. And they're doing very well. But I'm scared to death about what's going to happen, you know, if we get freezing weather. Because, you know, frozen lettuce doesn't survive. I mean, left to its own devices with this rainy weather, you know, this time of year, I would normally be able to start pulling some leaves off of various plants within a week or two. So, yeah, I'm kind of sweating out this, I'm definitely sweating out this frost and this crazy wind weather. I mean, who knows what? 60-mile-an-hour winds. That's like tropical storm. 45, 6, because 45 to 75. Isn't 75 the lowest? The lowest of the low in a hurricane, 75 or 85, and then tropicals are like 45 to 75 or something like that. And that's either some garlic or onion on the left. I think it's onion. I should have separated those things, but I didn't. So, yeah, I'm focusing on this in slow-mo because, I don't know, sentimentality. My poor little lettuce plants. And here you get another look at the bean plants that have popped up. So we'll get a couple of those. They should survive. They survived the last frost. I only need a couple of them to fill that area with a bunch of beans, string beans, or whatever I get. My closed-in cage area where I usually and will eventually put in my tomatoes and peppers in these open spaces here. But, you know, it's too early to do that. So that, like to the left here, well, it's coming in the main frame. That'll be, those will be tomato plants here. I'm not going to get crazy with tomato plants this year. I'm probably just going to put in, you know, get a pack of 4 or 6 good hardy tomatoes and just take care of them very well and hope that I get a good harvest, continual harvest. And here's where I put the rest of the lettuce plants. And these, again, I started in my little mini greenhouse, which I sometimes refer to as the TARDIS. And you can see they're doing fairly well. I mean, for being transplanted. I mean, those leaves are nice. So I'm worried about them, too. Because, I mean, between this little lettuce plot and that other one, and you can see I've got peas and beans along the fence there. You know, in front of that grass. And there's plenty of metal wire or whatnot for them to grow up tall. But yeah, I mean, between this and the others, I would hope that, you know, I could be eating salads for the next several months under normal circumstances. I hope I don't have to go back to, you know, starts again. That'll just be Very depressing. And I think I definitely have enough peas and beans. There's some peas. I mean, I planted both peas and beans together in there. And it's kind of an out of control thing, but I think they'll do fine. You know. And then as we move over here, there's some a lot of onions that just overwintered. And I mean, I really don't think these are chives or anything like that. I think they're onions I should have separated. I didn't. So at this point, I'll pull them out, and I guess I could probably eat them as chives. And here you see the second bush of oregano, and there's a little bit mixed in there, I think some parsley and kind of in between those two onion bushels. And the roof from my little mini greenhouse, which you see over there, drains right on this spot. So, pardon me for that. I just did a 2-hour, or close to a 2-hour Tony Caravan morning show, so my voice is pretty well shot. But, and I have another lettuce here, and I'll probably put some, plant a couple Swiss chard plants. I had planted some over by that other lettuce crop, the first one we saw, against the wall. But I don't think they made it through the frost. So I have some good Swiss chard seeds. So I'll just put them in, and Swiss chard will grow, at least for me, it'll grow like through the whole summer. And so, and you know, it's the same with once the kale starts giving me some big leaves. I mean, the Swiss chard is just hard. You always end up with more than you need. And in another part of the lawn, call it the lawn, my garden, my backyard, I'm going to plant some squash, zucchini, and I hope I get a decent crop this year of that. I didn't last year for some reason, but the year before I had so many I was just giving them away to people, like 6 at a time, and had the classic couple. You miss one and it grows the size of a, I don't know what, just some giant gourd. I've got to clean up this area a little bit too. I got to get more rocks for my path. And someone's calling me on the phone, so. And I'm back from that phone call conversation, which I didn't bother editing out. So we're going to look at the mini greenhouse, and you'll get a chance. I'm gonna not this, where that green little square is, there's a fan. There's going to be a fan there. Well, you can't see that it's square, but that green slatted wood, tongue and groove, whatever, wainscoting. There's going to be a fan in that. Yeah, now you can see it. That was just covered up for the winter. And I'll paint over that particle board too. And we're going to end in this corner is how I enter the mini greenhouse. And then this door thing I'm going to just paint and make it look like a TARDIS. So only I will see that it looks like the TARDIS. And you can see it, well, you kind of can see it the door needs a paint job. I don't know what I was doing with the camera, trying to show an inside view or something weird like that. I know I opened the door. Maybe I was considering not opening the door. So it's going to be one of those like real rapid ends, like the slow-mo thing ends at the very end. It's like the way it starts. It starts fast and then it finishes fast. So yeah, what the heck was I doing here? What was I doing? Let's get to the point. Okay, here we go. I opened the door. And you can see I have some flowers, some starts in here. These are mainly flowers, though there is a cilantro in that larger container. And there's one tomato plant in here, and that's to the left. You can't see it yet. It's in that, part of it was in that blue thing. And there's a gnome, garden gnome, which I think I focused on, overlooking things. But these are things like zinnias and marigolds and just general wildflowers, which I'll transplant. There's the garden gnome. Now we're in hyperspeed. And there's a pepper plant right at the very end. Anyway, that's it. Garden update. I'll let you know how it goes with the freeze. That's a pepper plant. Talk to you soon. Yeah, peppers will be there in the bottom.